Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man who inspired the invention of the restraining order, my brother Mike.
Hey, it's brought to you by True Events on that. No, that's not.
Wasn't for creepy reasons. You just kept sleeping on the Lincoln Memorial. Is the
Hey,
thing.
you know,
And so
if
they were like,
when
get
you
off
need
of
a
there.
when you need a place to rest, you lay down. What happened to freedom in this world? I thought we were about freedom. Okay,
Is this America?
is this America? Is this America? No.
Anyway,
I'll sleep wherever. When I get tired, I sleep wherever.
on this week's episode, we'll review what started out as a good week for the Royals and then took an abrupt turn into the toilet over the last 5 days. And then we'll discuss our ideal lineup as the Royals have taken on some new players and the lineup is going to look a lot different moving forward for the home stretch of this season. And then we'll preview this week's games. But first, we want to make sure you are, one, subscribing to the Royals Weekly Substack. We're putting up another episode on Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we're putting out an extra episode just for Substack subscribers, paid Substack subscribers. So fork over that dough, you cheap bastards. And no.
We love you.
I'm taking an alternative tactic. Anyway, $5 a month gets you an extra episode every single week, gets you at least one article from me every week, and then gets you additional articles occasionally as Mike finds time to write them. So make sure you're subscribed to Royals Weekly Substack, and that'll be awesome. Also, make sure you're leaving us comments. We'd love some more Apple Podcast reviews. That'd be great. We'd love to read them on the podcast because they're hilarious a lot of the times. And so, yeah, leave us an Apple Podcast review, comment on the YouTube section, in the YouTube page, whatever. Just let us know what you're doing. Let us know what you're thinking, okay? I also want to remind you that Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the game. Think you know your stuff? I should probably read that as a question. Think you know your stuff? Get in on their $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here.
He's like a real live boy.
We'll start the review of last week with roster news. There was a bunch of very interesting roster news. There was a day where it was just like roster news day, and it started. I had to lump these together because we don't have the time to talk about them individually, and so I lumped some of them together. We'll start with the big ones. The Royals claimed Robbie Grossman and Tommy Pham off of waivers, both outfielders, both in their mid-30s. Basically as a replacement not just as a replacement for Vinny Pasquantino, but we'll get to that. But they're both left-handed mashers, oldish outfielders. Mike, right-handed. What are your thoughts? I know, but they mash left-handed pitching.
Oh, okay, sorry.
They mash left-handed pitching. They're, I believe Grossman's a switch hitter. Pham is a right-handed hitter, but they both hit left-handed pitching really well. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Royals claiming both of these guys and adding to the roster?
I think it tells you a little something about what they expect to be and hope to do in the playoffs, or in the playoff push at the very least, because they saw that injury to Vinny and they were like, we need some consistency with this offense because we know the bullpen's not going to be everything we want it to be. What can we get at this point? Can we pace this lineup together? And I hope that that's going to work. I hope they're going to be able to cover for that level of production. But the other interesting thing that you did not note, both of these guys at different times have killed the Royals, by the way. Mm-hmm. Robbie Grossman, when he was with Detroit, killed the Royals every time. Tommy Pham in St. Louis as well, killed the Royals every time. And with the White Sox, he's had a good, decent run there with the White Sox too against us in a shorter stint. But gosh, it seems like it's going to get tricky now.
Yeah, let's hope that success against the Royals translates to hitting in Kaufman or something, because we would love to see both of those guys hit. Tommy Pham had a couple hits today in his first action, so that was good to see. This is an interesting thing. Like I said, I don't think it's just about replacing Vinny Pasquantino. The Royals have struggled all year against left-handed pitching, and these guys are designed specifically to fill that need. It's interesting because it seems like the Royals, now that Vinny has gone down, they're like, okay, we're going to lean hard into platooning. We're going to go find 2 guys who all they can do is hit left-handed pitching, and they're going to see heavy rotation against lefties, we're essentially going to have a left-handed lineup and a right-handed lineup. Now, Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez will be the only two everyday players, probably, but they're going to lean heavily into platooning now with Pham and Grossman. You just know that that's the case. They also signed Yuli Gurriel, who we'll talk about here in a second, another guy who they could use in rotations. It's interesting to me that they're willing to do that, and I think it's actually a really smart play. I'm 100% here for them leaning big in platooning in order to make up for some of that production that they lost with Vinny Pasquantino. Mike, the Royals traded cash to the Braves for first baseman Yuli Gurriel. What are your thoughts on adding a guy who is, what is he, like 40 years old?
He is 40, yes. He is 40 years old.
By the way,
40 years young.
We didn't mention this roster news, but if you haven't heard, Vinny Pasquantino broke his right thumb and is on the 60. It's 60.
No, they haven't 60 dated him yet.
That's right. He's the 50. He's the 10-day IL right now, but 6 to 8 week is his recovery window, which put him basically the end of the season. If the Royals make the World Series,
I saw a quote from Vinny,
might have a chance.
Or from JJ, who said, "We think he might have a chance." So
if they make the World Series, he might have a chance to come back. But
he's going on the
60. I find it highly unlikely. Anyway, that's the preceding news to all these roster moves. We're not like all of them essentially were made as a result of that move in some ways. Mike, what do you think about Yuri Gurriel? Well, the Royals going to use him. How's it going to go?
Well, he also had his first hit today as a Royal. It's another low cost kind of thing to fit into the lineup. This guy won a batting title, by the way. I mean, he adds no defensive value anywhere. He probably is just going to DH, and if not, he'll play first on days when Salvi. He'll probably play first. He'll probably play first most on days when Salvi catches, which I don't think is going to be that many, and then he'll DH maybe. Again, I think it's although he's got kind of a reverse platoon split as well. So maybe it is more of hey, he can play against lefties and righties. I don't know. But taking a swing on a guy who just took his first major league at bats today. So
yeah, not ever, obviously,
not ever.
Like
this year,
yeah. Right? And JJ came out and said that no, Salvi's still going to catch quite a bit, and I have some big doubts. If they want to make the playoffs, that's not a smart decision. And so if they want to make the playoffs, their best decision is getting both Salvador Perez and Freddie Fermin in the lineup as much as possible. And so we'll see if that ends up being the case. We'll see if Gurriel ends up with a lot of time. I'm not as high on this move just because I just think it doesn't move the needle that much. Gurriel has, decent numbers in AAA this year, but there's a reason he doesn't have any major league plate appearances this year. There's not the Braves, who he was with, the organization he was with, don't have a lot of confidence that he could actually hit in Major League Baseball, and I don't either. And especially at 40 years old, I think that's going to be an issue. But, we'll see on that. I think it's fine. It doesn't hurt anything because it was extremely low cost. But I don't think that's going to really move the needle at all.
And he may just be like we need a pinch hit late in a game kind of guy. I mean, he takes good at bats and puts the ball in play. Like, that's kind of the guy you want as a DH, or not a DH, as a pinch hitter late in games if you really need a single,
Yeah. Better be a single. To make room for some of these guys on the 26-man and 40-man and all that sort of thing, the Royals demoted Tyler Gentry. They demoted Nick Lofton. They DFA'd, that's designated for assignment, Anthony Veneziano, and then they recalled Alec Marsh to the Major League team to pitch today. Mike, what are your thoughts on this flurry of prospects being sent down, DFA'd, all these other things?
Well, Marsh was a given. I felt like when Lorenzen went down, Marsh was a given to come up at this time. We saw him make that start last time for the first time in a while, and now we knew it was his turn in the rotation again. We knew he was coming back up. And so, yeah, that's a given. The other guys that they sent back down, Tyler Gentry, they weren't giving him opportunities anyway. And, he's some guy I hope still gets an opportunity, but I don't know that you're like, we have to have him on this playoff roster, And so, yeah. And Nick Lofton, man, he's a guy I really thought was going to come in and kind of put a chokehold on a utility role there, but he's not been good. So, I'm hoping maybe he can fix some of those issues that he has with getting the ball in the air. And so
well, it's not just getting the ball in the air. I mean, I think Lofton has an issue with finding the barrel consistently. Like the guy will swing, and it looks like his swing goes rough. It looks like he has roughly average bat speed. Nothing you would say like, oh, it's the bat speed that's going to kill him. His bat speed seems fine. He just doesn't seem to square the ball up very much, because when he puts the ball in play, it's like a lame duck. It's like somebody shooting a duck out of the sky. It is just not going very hard. His exit velocity numbers are terrible, and it can't be explained by his bat speed, which means it's explained by his squaring up the ball. He's not doing it. He's not doing that well. And so I had this issue, or I had this concern when he was called up, because I've seen enough minor league Nick Lofton to know that this happens sometimes, that he has decent numbers sometimes in AAA, but when you watch the games, it doesn't look like he's impacting the ball very hard. He's getting a lot of sort of bloop hits and soft line drives and stuff like that. And it's like, where's the power? Where's him putting a charge into a ball? And it's just not there. And so, yeah, I'm a little disappointed in Nick Lofton as well. I think that, there's nothing to be too irked about in this group. Gentry, you're right, is a guy who I hope still gets an opportunity in some way, but he wasn't demanding time in any sort of way. And so, it's fine there. Marsh came up and did a serviceable job today, giving them a chance to win. That's fine. Veneziano, not a completely uninteresting lefty, but, wasn't really knocking the door down either. I also should mention that Austin Nola was also DFA'd, as was CJ Alexander. And so the CJ Alexander notion of Major League is he's at least DFA'd at this point, and so he'll be off the 40-man. So on the field this week, the Royals had not amazing time. Not so long ago, just 5 days ago, to be precise, the Royals were riding high. They were atop the AL Central. Remember that, Mike? Cast your mind back.
It was glorious.
To 5 days ago.
We had the tiebreaker.
When we had about, what was it, about 18 hours of leading the AL Central?
Pure bliss, baby. Pure bliss.
After taking the first 3 games in that Cleveland series to start the week, though, the Royals ended the week with a 5-game losing streak that dropped their record to 75-63 after losing their starting first baseman and best reliever to injury on the same play. Mike, put this week into words for me. It's been a crazy, crazy week.
One word, a friend of mine taught it to me a long time ago, or not a long time ago. I just learned what this word meant like 2 years ago. Mercurial. Yeah, mercurial, which means like up and down. Because like Mercury, up and down, that's how she told me that. But that's what it was. It felt like it turned on a dime, and we all know what that dime is.
Yeah.
Vinny's injury, that one play that got Ursig and Vinny. It felt like...
And lost him a game.
And lost him a game, yeah.
And lost they tied the
game. They tied the game on that play, and 2 of their best players got hurt. And I went in the next day, and a buddy of mine asked me about it. He's like, what about that game? I said, I don't know if one play has ever negatively impacted a team so much in my baseball watching life. So it sucked, but we still have a murderer's row ahead of us. Mm-hmm. So you've got to regroup, and I'm going out tomorrow to see the game, and we got to get a win against the Guardians. Like, let's do it. Nobody's going to feel bad for you, Kansas City Royals, despite the fact that you've been a doormat for a while.
Yeah. I can't think of another time when a week turned so much on one moment. Like that moment caused a 5-game losing streak, at least 5 games running. Who knows? Now it is tough. The fact that they're playing 8 games in 7 days, the fact that they're in the middle of this long ass stretch without a day off and all that sort of stuff, all that, has a negative impact. But boy, that moment really just changed a ton for the Royals. They were hitting going into that game. They were, everything was going great. And then boop, and all of a sudden they almost got no hit like the next day or the day after that. It was wild.
Through 5. They were
more than that. They were through
7. Yeah, they just took him
7. Out. Yeah. They were through 7 no-hit innings. It was wild to see they got to get something back, right? They got to get it back. Yeah. Despite the fact that the Royals had a rough week psychologically, who is your strong performer for this week?
MJ Melendez. You and I mentioned him as an X factor in this playoff push, and he seems to be still doing fine. Now, we mentioned that before Vinny Pasquantino got hurt, so we'd like our a reprieve if Vinny goes off and they still don't score runs, or sorry, MJ goes off and they still don't score runs. But I like what I've seen from him. I do, despite the stolen base thing today where he got out, or I don't know, maybe a missed hit and run. I don't know. Despite that, he's been 8 for 26, 2 doubles, a home run, 4 walks. He's been seeing the ball well to just 4 strikeouts. So, man, especially with Vinny down, we need him to continue to hit the ball really, really well.
Yeah, with Vinny down, he is going to become even more important, especially his power production. And so, yeah, they're going to need him in the middle of the lineup probably. And
just straight run production. I mean, like
he's going to straight run production.
I know it's old school, but there was something that Vinny was developing in moments where you could score runs, where that was very situational. And that's why he led the league in sacrifice flies and all that sort of stuff. But his situational stuff was so good that he produced runs. And you used to see guys like Frank Thomas and Cabrera and Abreu for the White Sox, like Jim Thome. All these guys knew. Paul Konerko. All these guys knew exactly how to bring in a guy. Michael Massey doesn't have that, man. He hit 3 today.
Yeah. And that's not gonna, that ain't it, as the kids say. That ain't it. No. Yeah, he's been really good. Hopefully that continues. The guy I'm going with has also been very good, and he's never going to be that guy because he strikes out too much and just doesn't give you what you would call a truly great plate appearance, but he has been a lifesaver for the Royals since they traded for him, and that's Paul DeYoung. He went 5 for 21 this week with 3 home runs, 3 walks, 12 strikeouts. That's
Paul DeYoung.
That's a Paul DeYoung line right there. 12 strikeouts this week, but I did hit 3 bombs, so who gives a shit?
Right. You know? That I flexed on your lady.
Yeah. And DeYoung is proving that he is just perfectly DeYoungian. A bunch of strikeouts, really only hitting right-handed hitting.
Mark Reynolds
or right-handed pitching. Right. Really only hitting right-handed pitching. But they're doing exactly what they need him to do, right? Like they need him to do that. They need him to play solid at third base. And he's been doing that, and it's been really great. And it's really helped them in the moments where they were hot. Now they're not so hot, but they face quite a few lefties in this Astros rotation, and that didn't help them. And so hopefully DeYoung can keep going off. Hopefully DeYoung can keep staying hot against right-handed pitching, because they're going to really – their offense just really rides on a razor's edge at this point.
Yeah, that power and his defensive ability is going to keep him in a job for a long time. Or probably. I guess. Has and will continue to.
There were plenty of weak performers to choose from this week, Mike. Who'd you go with for your frowny face guy this week?
Well, I already kind of mentioned him a second ago. Michael Massey, man. 3 for 20, a home run, 2 RBI, one walk, and 3 strikeouts. He's hitting in very important spots in the lineup right now. Leadoff, third, fifth. You know, it's too inconsistent for me for him to be in those big time run producing spots over and over again and not cash in. It kills me. So. Yeah, I don't know. I love the defense. I like the power. I wish it was more consistent.
Yeah, that's always going to be Massey's thing. If you live and die by the batted ball, it's going to be inconsistent. That's just the way it is. And if you're not playing a premium position like shortstop or catcher or center field, then you don't want to live with that inconsistency in your lineup if you can help it. My weak performer this week, this might be the first time he has been on this list, in this spot, on the weak performer spot, all season. And that is Cole Reagans. He did not have a good week this last week. He went 9 innings pitched, but that was 2 starts. 7 runs, 6 earned, 6 walks in 9 innings, 14 strikeouts. The strikeouts are still there, as always, but the 6 walks really killed him. The walks and guys stringing hits, it just made him fall apart in big innings. He gave up a big inning yesterday after he was cruising for a while.
He looked like he was...
He looked unhittable for a while. And then
8 straight strikeouts. He had 8 straight strikeouts.
Some walks, some hits, and boom, the game blew up. Right. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a blow up. I don't think this is a consistency thing. I don't think Cole Reagans will consistently be an issue, but was not a good week for him last week. And they kind of need him to be really solid for the rest of the season. Mike, in a week that had high highs but also low lows, what was your theme for this week?
Well, I went with a classic movie quote here. I mean, it's in the pantheon. It's life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it. The Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Beautiful, beautiful delivery from Matthew Broderick there. You heard him in that, right? That was good. That was good, Broderick.
You sounded just like Broderick. Just like Broderick.
But no, it's now moving so fast with these new guys coming in and that losing streak. It kind of makes me think like, hey, stop and look around. We're still in great position. Mm-hmm. We're still in a really good position for the wild card. You know, we got 3 against the Guardians coming up. Yes, it's a very tough schedule moving forward, but we brought these guys in. It just feels so frantic right now with that injury and all the moves, you know? You'd almost say, you know, if it doesn't work out, they're going to go, was that desperation? Were they flailing there? Like, let's figure something out. I don't know, but stop. We're in a good position. I'm excited for this upcoming series.
It is exciting, and we do need to kind of appreciate this moment. Remember, we asked for it. We wanted to be playoff contenders. We got it, right? So let's appreciate it. In fact, my theme for this week also has to deal with sort of the fans' response, or what happens to fans when they get in this moment, you know, where it's high highs and low lows, and every loss feels like you've been gutted and all that sort of stuff. It reminds me of the Bourne Identity. There's a line in it from Clive Owen's character, and oddly, I think it might be his only line in the whole movie.
He's not.
He only has like
long.
one line. He's only in the movie for like a second, and he plays like an assassin. If you've never seen it, and Matt Damon's Jason Bourne character shoots him in the stomach, and he's in this like cornfield essentially, and he looks down at his stomach, and he looks up at Matt Damon's character. They're both assassins, essentially working for the same company, and he just looks at Damon's character and he says, "Look at what they make you give," and that's it. That's the whole
dead on.
He falls
Owen.
over dead. He falls over dead.
On Clive Owen.
I know. That was a dead on. I do a very good Clive Owen.
And you said if you haven't seen it, are there people alive who haven't seen that movie?
If you haven't seen The Bourne Identity, go watch it now, and then watch the second one. I'm going to have a Bourne Ultimatum marathon here, a Bourne marathon here before too long. I just love those movies so much.
They are fantastic.
Fantastic films. The American James Bond, they say, but which is funny because he does no spycraft. He just kills a bunch of people. But anyway, yeah, look at what they made you give. This is what being a sports fan is about, people. You got to be high, you got to be low. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy. You already know that All In Physical Therapy helped our mother break the world record in the clean and snatch. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
We need to get Vinny over to All In. He'll be dropping bombs in a week.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. All In Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and now Belton. But most importantly, they're in-network for nearly all insurance providers.
You can use that money to save on nice stuff like plants or American flag t-shirts. You can never have too many American flag t-shirts.
Can't have too many of those. Can't have too many of those. Do it. Wear them year round. If you're a high school athlete recovering from if you're a high school athlete recovering from injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. So much has changed for the Royals over the last week. It is crazy. It's crazy to see the transaction list be enormous. It's crazy to see all this stuff happening. We're going to try and make sense of it during today's Spotlight segment. Obviously, the injury to Vinny Pasquantino looms large, as the Royals are going to have to make a playoff run without their 3-hitter and first baseman. They went out and they brought in 3 extremely veteran hitters. That's how I'm describing them. Extremely veteran hitters to help fill that gap.
They're veterans.
They're veterans of being veterans at this point.
They've moved on up.
But it's clear that the Royals lineup just got a little more rotational, with only Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez holding everyday status in the lineup, probably. Mike, let's talk about what we think the lineups should look like for the rest of the season. And it makes sense to start with the lineup against right-handed pitchers because they'll see more of those. What do you think the lineup should or could look like for left against right-handed pitchers?
Well, okay, I'm just going to rattle through the lineup that you and I, back and forth before the show here, just dropped it out. Really a mutual respect in those levels of knowledge of baseball.
I have no respect for Mike in any way, shape, or form,
and never has. That's great. But no, I think we came up with what they're essentially going to do. Michael Massey to lead off against righties. Bobby, Sal, we talked about them. MJ, Paul DeYoung, DHing Paul DeYoung. Yuli Gurriel, Pham, Garcia at third, and then Isbell in center.
Yes,
gives you some left-handed pop. Gives you some pop, really, but maybe some more consistency at the bottom with Gurriel and Pham.
Yes. So, Mike, let's talk a little bit about this one just to start with. So, the thing that might stand out to you, but I want to ask you mostly about the catching position, right? What are your thoughts on the notion that Sal is going to be the more consistent person catching against right-handed pitchers and not Fermin with Sal taking first base? What are your thoughts on that? Because I have my own perspective on what they should do. This is what I think closer to what they will do. We'll see.
You think they will do this?
If they stick with their word and they're like Salvi's going to catch.
I don't think they will though. I think they like to pay a little lip service and then just do what's actually the better option in having Fermin in there more often than I know. He doesn't do quite as well against righties, but I think if you can bump out, I think Gurriel might end up being more of a situational end of the game kind of guy in that situation, and so you might see a lot more Sal playing first. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that's what they go with to start, or they eventually come to this conclusion throughout the course of the month?
Ooh, I'm hoping they know it at the start. I think they give him a shot. I do. I think they give him a shot to rotate a little bit more, to have Sal catch and have Gurriel play first, but I don't think it'll stick.
Okay. What do you think when you look at this lineup? Is this a lineup that can score runs more consistently than maybe some of their lineups in the past have?
I think Pham definitely helps. Down at the bottom, a guy like Pham, I think he can get on base still.
To be clear, Pham has something like a 98 or 92 or 93 weighted runs created plus against right-handed pitchers.
But still, what were we getting from that before? Right. And so that I think he's an improvement down there. I really think he is. Garcia and Isbell are always going to be kind of streaky and stuff, but that provides you some speed down there still. I don't know if I will ever love Michael Massey leading off. So that's something I have a concern with, but somebody has to, so.
That's true. I think the rules of the baseball demand that somebody leads off. Okay, that's our right-handed lineup. Our left-handed lineup, I'll go ahead and read since Mike had to read the first one. Robbie Grossman leading off. I know they had Pham do it today, but I would prefer Robbie Grossman up there. Witt Jr., Perez, Pham hitting fourth, Fermin hitting fifth and catching, DeYoung, Garcia, Hampson, and Blanco. DeYoung here would play third base, I believe. Yes, would play third base, and then Garcia would play second. Hampson in center, Blanco in left, Pham in right. So it's Grossman, Witt, Perez, Pham, Fermin, DeYoung, Garcia, Hampson, and Blanco. Now you might be looking at this and saying, "Oh man, this is just a terrible lineup." But if you put up their weighted runs created pluses against left-handers, this lineup actually isn't that bad. You're talking about, Pham has like a 115. Grossman has like a 137 weighted runs created plus. Fermin has like a 127 or something like that weighted runs created plus against lefties. The top 5 or 6 of this lineup is really good against lefties. Hampson is okay. Blanco is really good, but that's in a very small sample size. And so you might be able to get a little production throughout this lineup against left-handed pitchers. Mike, what are your thoughts on seeing that lineup against lefties?
I think it's really interesting. I've always liked Robbie Grossman. I've been a big Robbie Grossman fan for a while, actually. Just watching him kill us in Detroit. Just watching him kill us in Detroit. I'm like, that guy switch hits. Back then he played a decent right field. He's a little bit older now. But it's like, dude,
I've lost a little bit of hair.
He just gets on base and hits. And back then he hit a lot of line drives, and it was like, gosh, I wish we had a guy. And back then he'd steal a base too. And so it was like, we never had that guy. We never had that guy that got on base like that. And so I always loved his game. And I'm interested to see what it looks like now in the leadoff spot in front of Bobby. If it's just a little bit more consistent getting on base, I'll take it. Start us off, get us going. I'm interested to see that. So this lineup doesn't look great, but it'll be a real tip of the cap to Quattro's managing ability if it works.
Yeah, it will be. And honestly, like I said, the Royals have been much weaker against left-handed pitching than they've been against right-handed pitching this year. And when I look at this lineup, it says to me this probably has a little bit better potential as a lineup than some of their previous lineups against left-handed pitching. We haven't included Hunter Renfroe in any of this because we're not sure when he's going to come back. And so if he does, that's another added bonus to this lineup. But
who goes? Who gets?
I think it might be Adam Frazier or.
I think.
Why not? I mean, you have Michael Massey, you have Michael Garcia, you have Garrett Hampson. All of them can play second base. Now you have a bunch of outfielders, so that really kills the value of his defensive versatility. And his offense is terrible. And so I think it's Frazier when Renfroe comes back, but we'll see. I look at this lineup and I see a little bit more potential than I would have thought, given all the injuries that they have and given their struggles against lefties. Mike, when we look at these two lineups, are there any exceptions to these? Any moments where you're like, okay, I know this says this guy against lefties, but we got to consider some other circumstances as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to kind of do that. You're going to look at pitches, like we've talked in the past about Hunter Renfroe and how he struggles with the fastball. He seems to have made an adjustment and improved that a little bit, but Paul DeYoung's the same way. A really good fastball will get Paul DeYoung. And so maybe if you see a guy like that, you go with Garcia at third, just because he handles that better. And so, yeah, just things like that. Blanco, obviously at the end of games, even if he's not in against righties, at the end of games, there's always a circumstance where he can come in and help somehow, and that'll be bullpen time anyway. So, there's definitely going to be circumstances where you can go to Grossman, for example. Hey, we need to lead off this inning with a guy on base. Maybe Grossman comes out. So I definitely think they're going to be doing a lot of that as well, kind of scrapping and clawing to get those runs in the middle and late innings because, we know the deficiencies of this team.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see something like Grossman starting against a right-handed pitcher who allows a lot of walks, who has difficulty.
Oh, yeah.
Because there you're talking about, okay, well, we're essentially sending you out there to grab 1 or 2 walks this game, right? If you can get a hit in some way, maybe, but you're out there because this guy can't control the baseball, and so if that's the case, it wouldn't surprise me to see that type of rotation. Something based on velocity or pitch design also wouldn't surprise me too terribly much. I'm thinking about, really no one. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm not thinking of anybody for that. I mean, maybe for a defensive situation, you might put Isbell in this facing a left-handed lineup. If you're like, hey, we're at home in Kaufman, Lorenzen is pitching, and we're like, hey, we need somebody to cover ground because he gives up a lot of fly balls. Then maybe Isbell stays in center. But other than that, I think for the most part, this is the best version of a righty lefties platoon that we have.
Yeah, and we've talked about like some of MJ's struggles with elevated fastballs. Maybe if you get a guy like that in there, it's like, okay, MJ comes out and Grossman's playing left today or whatever. I could see those.
I looked at the splits for MJ to consider him for like an everyday position in this lineup. Like you're going to play against both. In the past, he's had not as bad of splits against left-handed pitching. This year, huge split against left-handed pitching. He is like negative on the year, negative weighted runs created plus on the year against left-handed pitching. And the reason he's been so successful for the last couple of months, generally speaking, is he really hasn't been playing against lefties. And so I think that they've decided that he is pretty much a right-handed specialist. He's only going to hit righties. And so we'll see if they end up saying like, well, we want that power in the lineup. So he's going to hit against lefties too. And we're going to see what happens. We'll see. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just go and stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
To Mark, trust is like public decency laws. Optional.
Eric does long-term rentals for the Snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will help you find the perfect spot fast. Want to spend your day shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows the rejection of being picked last in kickball. You'll get over it someday, buddy.
I don't think I will.
Find Eric online at ericoxer.com. If you can figure out how to spell his name, ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he rocks the Casbah like nobody else.
I don't even know what that means. The Royals finally get an off day this week in between home series against the Guardians and Twins. Mike, I know you and I are going to be spending quite a bit of time out at the K this week. We're going to a game together on Friday with Alex and a couple others, and then you're going to a game this week, another game this week. So a lot of time spent out at Kauffman this week. They still have a shot at the division, so that Cleveland series is going to matter a lot, and so is the Twin series, honestly. If they want to win, they better start playing a whole lot better, though. Mike, tell us about this all-important Cleveland series.
Well, the Cleveland Guardians, we just saw them. You and I have stated we think that they match up pretty well with the Guardians. And I think we're going to see some decent matchups in this one as well. The Guardians are in first, obviously. They're 78-59. They're the team we're chasing. We get Michael Wacha against Gavin Williams in that first game. We just saw Gavin Williams. That also is very nice. 25-year-old righty out of East Carolina, a 4.99 ERA, a 1.41 whip. He's got a fastball in the mid-90s, which you would think be a good thing, although it's not. It's kind of getting hit a lot this year. So curveball, cutter, slider, change. He throws the fastball over 50% of the time, but like I said, it's kind of getting hit pretty hard this year. Pitched okay against the Royals the last time out, 5 innings of 2-run ball. Hopefully we can get to him this time around. Second game of the series will be Singer versus Tanner Bybee.
It is Bybee. Everybody says Bybee.
I hate it.
Go tell him he pronounces his name wrong. That's real nice.
Bybee. It's like Australians saying baby. It gets me. I hate it.
Get that Bybee over
here. Yeah. 25-year-old righty out of Cal State Fullerton, 3.65 ERA, 1.13 whip. Fastball in the mid to lower 90s, slider, changeup, curveball. Make hay against his fastball because the breaking stuff, the off-speed stuff is tough. They're good pitches, the secondaries. So we got 5 runs off of him in 5 innings last outing. He was the one we thought was going to be the toughest matchup, and we did pretty well against him. So the last game, Seth Lugo versus Ben Lively, 32-year-old righty out of University of Central Florida, 3.92 ERA and a 1.23 whip. He's a soft tosser. He's a soft tossing righty. Royals never hit soft tossers, it feels like, but that's okay. Sinker, sweeper, changeup, curveball, slider. He gets good extension. He allows a lot of hard contact and doesn't strike anybody out. So hopefully some of those new guys we have can produce some runs in that Guardian series. 2 of 3. Give me 2 of 3.
Yep. After that, the Twins will come to town, and Mike and I will go out to that game on Friday. That'll be nice. I'm so looking forward to it. That's why I keep bringing it up. I haven't been to a game since the beginning of the year. The Twins are 74-62, which makes them second in the American League Central. We are actually tied for them, I think, in terms of winning percentage, but they have the tiebreaker against us because they have the season series so far. Offensively, they have a 111 weighted runs created plus as a team, which puts them 5th in baseball. But the Twins are seriously hurt right now, like a ton of hurt. Carlos Correa, who has a 150 OPS plus for them, is on the 10-day injured list and has been since July with plantar fasciitis. And so I'm not sure if he's going to be off the IL by then or not. I hope not, but we'll see. Byron Buxton has a 138 OPS plus for them. He is on the 10-day injured list as well and has been since August 13th with, what was it? Hip inflammation, I think it was. And so he's been down for quite a while. Jose Miranda and Trevor Larnach are also having good years. They're both in the lineup still. And so we'll see them, but may not see Correa and Buxton. We'll see if they're back for this series. On the pitching side, their pitching is a lot worse than their hitting. They have a 4.17 ERA as a staff, which is good for 19th in Major League Baseball. But again, super injured in the rotation, especially. Joe Ryan is out for the year. Chris Paddock is out for the year. They still have Simeon Woods Richards. He's having a good year for them. But Pablo Lopez and Bailey Ober are just having what you would call average years, slightly above 4 in ERA for both of those guys. And so we'll see what the pitching matchups
Pablo
look out.
Lopez kills us, man.
Pablo Lopez does traditionally kill the Royals, though. So we'll see if that ends up being the case if they end up facing him in this series. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, what do you have?
Well, I thought I would pose a question to you, good brother. What makes a good neighbor?
You know the Mark Twain quote about
tall
good neighbors?
fences.
Tall fences is what makes good neighbors.
You know what makes good neighbors? Tall fences.
I should know because my neighbors are fantastic.
They are, and that's why I brought this up, because your neighbors are fantastic people. They helped us build your fence. Maybe that's why. Maybe they were like, let's get that fence
we need
up
to
here.
get this fence up quickly.
Then they can become fabulous neighbors to us.
Honestly, being a good neighbor is just about being a good person. It's the same sort of thing. Like, as long as you're considerate of others, you are probably a good neighbor, right? Yeah. In my mind, you don't have to be neighborly. You don't have to say hi to me. You don't have to come introduce yourself. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to not actively harm the experience of me living in that neighborhood. Why do you ask?
No, I ask because I'm a very similar answer to that. Like, I don't necessarily want to be really close with my neighbors. And I told Morgan that the last 3 places we've lived, like, I don't want to be friends with these people. Like, it's not that I don't like
geography bought us together.
I know.
Not
I need a buffer. Exactly. I need a buffer. Like, I don't want my friends to live right next to me, And anyway. And if it doesn't work out, like, I don't want to, whatever. And I got one of those. Now, Mark knows, public, you don't necessarily need to know, but one of my neighbors isn't great. Okay.
Awful.
Not great.
Really awful.
Let's just leave it at that. But I have a neighbor who, if you knew him from the outside, you might think, well, I don't know. But you know what he does? He leaves me alone for the most part. Like a wave every now and again, but we're not talking frequently. And like the other day, my wife, we've been interested in a swing set he has for our son in the backyard. His girls are now grown up. He's been a great father to his daughters. So that was another thing. Like, I can see that you're a decent person because I've seen you raise your kids. I've seen you, help people move and do other things for people in the neighborhood. But he doesn't bother me. And he came up and sold us his swing set for $100. Like, just said, hey, what do you think it's worth? And I said, $100. He said, great, I'll give it to you. He's like, that's just really nice of him. We don't talk. We're not all that close of friends, but I like it that way. And it's nice to have one, it's nice to have one of them. It's like, hey, this is a solid dude, who kind of, neighborhood dadded it for several years too. Like a lot of the neighborhood kids who, maybe dad isn't in the picture a lot, or, even like parents put him outside at the beginning of the day. He kind of became like the neighborhood dad to them too. So it's nice to have one good neighbor at least, and relish in that, hey, solid human being. He told me once when my air conditioning broke, just came over. Hey, I was sitting outside. Your air conditioner's making weird noise. Saved me a bunch of money on that and stuff. So he's a nice guy, and I appreciate that.
It is nice. It's way better than the alternative. I'll tell you that. I only really have one neighbor because on the other side of me is there's a person over there, and she's super nice too. Across the alleyway, she's super nice, and she's great. But the one neighbor I'm actually close to in proximity, great people.
They are.
Love that.
Really nice people.
I'm talking about Irish Fest, which I went to today. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Irish Fest was happening down in Crown Center area where Boulevardia was, Mike, when we went there. Mm-hmm. They were doing Irish Fest, and it's interesting. I want to bring up 2 things. One's really happy. It was just a fun time. We had a great time. Tons of great Irish music there. I mean, just a lot. They followed the Boulevardia model, and they had 4 or 5 stages, and somebody was playing music on one of them at all times. Saw a person play the bagpipes, right? And you think I've heard the bagpipes at wakes and stuff or whatever. She was playing the bagpipes the way some people play The guitar.
An electric guitar?
Yes, she was like covering
Awesome.
songs on the bagpipe, but playing the guitar parts, including Metallica and stuff like that. It was crazy. It was crazy awesome. And there were just other really good ones too. And it was cool to see the music. That was fun. You know, ate some fish and chips, did various things, you know. It was cool stuff to see. The vendors was cool and all that. What do you have? You have a comment?
Yeah, no, a lady that I worked with, she used to go down there and bartend for charity at Irish Fest, and they would raise money for like charity, and she swears by it. Loved it. Always been a part of that area.
Yeah, a lot of it is to raise money for various things. And, you know, one of them is like a bunch of the Catholic churches there here in town are like raising money for the schools that they run and stuff like that. Some of them, though, were also raising money for not a good reason this year. Yeah. If you haven't heard, there was a man who was murdered a couple of days ago here in Kansas City. His name was Sean Brady. He was the head chef at Brady's, or Brady and Fox, it might have been called. But essentially what ended up happening was he saw someone breaking into his car, confronted the person, and the person shot him. Now, the only reason I bring this up is not to make you sad or anything. It's just like a PSA. Like, if someone's breaking into your car, just call the police and do not confront that person, okay? It is not worth the potential that they may do something to you. So thoughts out to Sean Brady and his family. If you can donate, they're sort of raising money for that cause. If you can look it up online, you might be able to donate there. But sad thing to hear that somebody who was so integral, he was a big part of Irish Fest, and that's why there's people collecting money for that there. So it was a great time. It was, it was high spirits, but there was something sort of overshadowing it a little bit there. I heard that news a couple days ago. It was fairly sad, and it's not that far from where I live. It's like, like a mile and a half from where I live. And so, yeah, Irish Fest. If you've never checked it out, make sure you check it out. It is a great thing. And then make sure you're being wise when it comes to confronting people who might be stealing your stuff. Hopefully nobody does steal your stuff, including your heart. Okay. Hopefully the Royals don't steal your heart by losing this week. Mike, do you have any thoughts on what the Royals are going to do in terms of wins? What are you making predictions or what?
This week? Oh gosh, they need it so bad. Give me 2 or 3 against. Well, give me 4 wins at least.
You heard it right here. Mike says the Royals are going to go 6-0 this week. I want to thank you for joining us here on Royals Weekly, presented by Bet Online. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.